Today we have lesson number 9, sound and music, and we will talk about sound department first during the production stage, and then we will talk about music composer and film score elements. So it's quite interesting topic, since before we've been talking only about image, which is like sort of half of the film. And today we're going to focus on sound and music, which is the other half of the film. And when these two halves are combined together, so that's how we get the whole film. And we need to know the people who help us to have this sound. And it's not just one department, for example, as it used to be with other departments, for example, direction department or camera department or art department. So sound and music is a little bit between sort of two departments, or like between two, if I can say so, like two main people, professionals. So that's why we have sound and music separated at the beginning, but then I guess you will understand why. So before we start talking about the sound department, so have you ever had any idea, or maybe you have some kind of understanding, maybe you heard some words or professions about people who work on film on set so that to record the sound? Maybe you know some professions, or maybe you know some other people, maybe you took part sometimes in watching some filmmaking process, so something that can give you an understanding how this process goes on with recording. Sound editor. Well, that's about post-production mostly. Yes, and sound editor works already with the sound that was recorded, so that to edit it, like for example, editor works with footage of the live action shot, so he or she edits the images mostly, and sound editor edits the sound. Voice acting, okay, that's all about post-production. But if we're talking about the actual recording on set, so do you know any professions from the actual recording when it's just been shooting? Okay, so I guess then I should really start giving you the information about these very important people in sound department. So let's move to the first profession, which is the one of the most important departments. And the first person, the head, is the production sound mixer. So actually, if we talk about sound editor and sound mixer, so these are two important people who will also be nominated for Oscar as well. So there are two separate nominations for best sound mixing and best sound editing. I guess you start understanding why, because one of them really controls the production process, and it's very important to get the sound recorded on the set and to have its at the some good quality level. And then the next level on post-production, so sound editor will edit the sound which was recorded. So these two people are very important. What else do we need to know about the sound mixer? So sound mixer is the person who doesn't really mix the sound, but mixer means that he or she needs to know how to record the sound on set with the different types of devices, for example, and to have all these microphones on actors, and to have all this audio connection between all the crew people on set as well. Yeah, so they need to capture sound for each shot, then select which microphones will be used for each setup, because if we have one actor in the frame, so it's just one microphone. If we have more than one actor, so then it means that every person in the frame on the set, all the actors will have microphones. So, and sound mixer, or sometimes he or she is also known as sound recordist, which is like more understanding so what this person is doing on the set. So this person records all the sound. So it can be sound of actors talking, it can be the sound of some other noise on the set, and it can be also the sound of the whole atmosphere on the set. I don't know if you ever paid attention to maybe sort of silence, like when actors don't really talk on the set, but still there is some kind of sound, or they call it noise. On professional level, they call it atmosphere sound. So they just record how this particular location sounds. So sound inside will be one type, sound outside will be different types, so there can be mixture of sounds. For example, if you're inside and you, for example, hear a clock ticking, so you need to record all these sounds separately or together, but usually you need to record them separately so that to be able to modify them a little bit later during post-production, so that sound editor will have this opportunity. Otherwise, it will be very difficult to modify, like for example, sound clicking together with the whole room tone or atmosphere sound if it's just one track. So it's kind of difficult. So therefore, it's better to have different tracks for every sound on location, for example, so that to be able to mix them. So that's about sound mixing. Or if you're outside, imagine if it's park. So you can have some like distance birds singing, for example. You have leaves trembling. If there is a river, so there is the sound of the river floating or something like this. So people are walking. So all these are different sounds, and the sound mixer needs to record all of them somehow. So that's quite complex work, and so you need to be very professional. You need to be all these years listening and already thinking creatively, so that not to miss all the sounds that you will need then to give to the sound editor, so that to edit them, and to think creatively, so which sounds will highlight, underline the mood of the scene. Yeah, so that's how it happens with sound mixer. So he or she is the head of the department, of the sound department during the production stage. The next person, who is very important, is a little bit more technical one. It is called boom operator. So boom, it's the technical device. Sometimes he or she can be also called like first assistant sound, like an assistant to sound mixer. So he or she is responsible for all the microphones again, and for the boom pole. So you will see in a while so what boom pole is. And usually, of course, this profession is occupied by men, because it's quite a sporty profession, because you need to be very sporty person so that to hold this boom all the time and in different positions possible and for some certain amount of time. So it's like everyday exercise. Also, The responsibility of boom operator is to relay information from the floor back to the production sound mixer regarding upcoming shots. So actually it's like an assistant job, but if, for example, it's a big budget film, so there is a separate person like boom operator. If, for example, it's a low budget film, so sound mixer can also do the job of a boom operator. Then, of course, it becomes more complex one, but well, anyway, it depends on the money. So there can be one boom operator, or if you have money, and of course, if it's a big budget film, so there can be at least like two boom operators, so that to record a much better sound. So usually, of course, if you have one boom, it's okay. I mean, it's normal, it's standard. If you want to have more quality, if you want to have more sound opportunities, how to edit the sound and to have sort of like more atmospheric and more, in a way, Dolby Digital sound, but still you can edit during the post-production. So here, this is how usually boom operator works. So here you can see the man on the ladder holding this boom. So that's the boom. It looks like a fishing pole with this huge microphone at the end. So this microphone at the end, so this is the microphone that can record sort of the whole sound, like the atmosphere sound, and steal the sound from the actor. At the same moment, the actor, so here that's the girl, so she also has the microphone on her. But you always need to use the combination of boom and the microphone. Then the sound will become more, it will have more volume. So if you have, for example, only boom, then the voice of the actor will be not so exact, for example, and the quality will be, so it will have more noise. If you have only actor's microphone without boom, then you will not hear the atmosphere. So you will have to add another sound again. That's the trouble. So therefore, you need to have and microphones on actors and boom, so that to record the whole atmosphere. So, have you ever heard about the boom operator? Maybe you've seen it somewhere. Since usually when we try, but not the boom. Okay. Well, now you know. It's not a slang word or something, so it's just the normal official word for this profession. Well, you can still call it like first assistant sound mixer or sound recordist, but anyway, so boom operator. Well, it's in Russian it will be still boom because it immigrates to Russian language as well. But if you're talking about like the whole sound department, so sound mixer, it will be звукорежиссер. As for boom operators, sometimes they can call it like инженер звукозаписи, but it's just too much. It's too official. Well, the idea is that we had the Soviet system and it was just one way. They had this pompous names for all the professions. But then we had the collapse of Soviet system, then we had the stagnation period during the 90s, then we came out of it, then we started to the 21st century where we understood that we need to implement the Hollywood system. So it's just been 20 years while we're still trying to adapt the Hollywood system because we need to build the new, like, strong filmmaking industry. I mean, like the machine that works and all the people understand what's going on, and so who is responsible for what, and so on and so forth. So it's difficult because we didn't have any sort of like this filmmaking industry like it was established in Hollywood. and it's been working for like more than 100 years. So now we're sort of like starting from scratch in a way. I know it's really hard to believe, but it's really true. And while, for example, Hollywood system was still developing, like developing new professions, developing because of the technology and everything. So we were still trying to run after Hollywood to copy it, but we forgot that the guys were still moving and they were developing, and therefore we're just trying to copy, but it's really hard. So therefore, if you talk about the young generation of filmmakers, of course they use English terminology, and because they speak English, and they want to be modern, and they look forward to Western filmmaking. They of course are looking forward to Hollywood productions because, well, that's industry. That's why they want to sound as well cool and nice. Yeah, so in Russian it doesn't really sound okay. And if you want to send again films to film festivals, of course you want to send your films to film festivals and international ones, you need to write your final credits in English. So sometimes you even don't care about Russian credits. Yeah, you just write them in English, and like, who cares? Yeah, so that's about the boom operator. And there is one more guy in this department. So if you have a nice budget, there can be like a second assistant sound. He or she can be also called utility sound technician. And he or she can be like an assistant to boom operator, because you can see that the guy is always like holding the boom, and it's like during all the takes, so there has to be help. And this second assistant sound is responsible for moving and preparing, for example, sound equipment for use around the set, while the boom operator watches like rehearsals and prepares. The idea with the boom operator is that this fishing pole, the boom, it has to be out of the frame. And you can imagine, for example, if this guy is holding this boom all the time with like hands lift up, and the take is like, for example, 5 minutes long, and he cannot really like put his hands down, because then the boom will be like in the frame and it will spoil the whole take. So it's quite stressful work as well. So sometimes he or she will need help, like maybe physically, to support the boom, or like to be to be a saver in a way. Also, the second assistant sound can operate the second boom, as I told you before. So if you have like the second boom, so this can be his or her job, or he or she doesn't really have to stand like next to the first boom, but can be transferred to record the sound from, for example, somewhere in the background, if it's like with a lot of extras, so that at the same time to record sort of like the background extras, noise or whatever they're saying. Yeah, humming. Yeah. So, but anyway, the sound department on the set is about sound mixer, boom operator, and second assistant sound. So usually like these three people should be okay, but of course if they can have more assistants, it's always better. And I'm going to show you how well, I don't know why, but I think it's better to use just the person himself or herself, because it should be like very flexible, and these boom operators are really like sporty people, and they know that they're doing and what they have to do, so they're like, they have like huge muscles and everything. Yeah. There is no support. Okay, so I'll try to show you the video about boom operator, because I think it's quite interesting and funny. So let's try and watch it.
From DD Microphones. We're on set today and we're going to go find out how to be a boom operator. So let's go check it out, okay? Hey, so now we're on set and Paul's going to teach us how to be a boom operator. Paul was on The Amazing Race. Hey Paul, Can you teach us how to be a boom operator?
I'll do my best.
Cool.
Well, the first rule you gotta understand in being a boom op, the name of the game is utilizing your boom pole to position the mic in the correct place while staying out of frame.
Out of frame.
Never this.
The first thing Paul mentioned is getting the mic in the proper position. It should be no more than 6 to 8 inches above the forehead and aimed at the mouth. Be sure to check the frame line or have a camera operator let you know when you're in. For long interview setups, use a boom pole holder to save your arms. Always keep your C-stand knuckles on the right, so if the pole falls, it only tightens itself. So we just saw you set this thing up, we checked your frame line, you made sure everything was good, and you weren't in frame, but still as close as possible, right?
That's right.
Right, but didn't you cheat using this thing?
You may call it cheating, I call it using all of the tools to my advantage.
Okay, but I want to learn how to be a boom operator and hold the actual boom. Can you show me that?
So if we're not going to use a boom, maybe we would do something like a walk and talk. Let's show you how to do that.
Let's go do a walk and talk. Hey, so what did you mean by walk and talk?
Well, it's real easy. It's when you and your talent are both walking while your talent's talking.
Yeah, no, I should have. Yeah, okay. So what is it you do differently for a walk and talk versus just a stand-up?
Well, there's 2 points you have to remember. One, you still have to keep your boom out of that frame line that we talked about before. But because you're walking, you need to be able to do that while you're walking with your camera operator, because you're a team.
Okay, so let's tag team this.
Big thing about houses is the trees. You get small trees.
A quick tip for walking in tandem with a camera operator, always keep your body open to them. Be sure to walk quietly. Always check with the camera team to see if the frame line is going to change during the camera move. So we just did a walk and talk. Paul taught us all that. So what we got to do is walk in pace with the camera operator, and we got to make sure we keep frame line the whole time though.
And don't trip. It's very embarrassing when you do that.
Don't trip. Okay, so that's pretty easy. Your claps and your pull, is there a certain order that you do your collars?
Of course, you always want to use the top collar first. That way when you're extending or closing your pull, the bank of collars is always accessible and not all the way at the top where you can't reach them.
Okay, that's easy enough to remember. Well, I mean, you're collapsing that. Let's put our gear away and let's go have lunch.
Sounds good to me.
What do we do with our gear when we're done?
So that was quite a funny and optimistic video about boom operator. Well, that's actually everything that you need to do so that to keep the boom out of the frame, so that to have a clean shot. You can sort of use this cheating technique, but it doesn't really work all the time, well, unless you know that the whole shot will be at the same position, so the camera will not move, the actor will not move, so it's like steady shot. But still, it's not really comfortable probably. So, well, boom operators hold booms all the time with their hands, and if it's like a walking shot, then you have to be very careful. You have to move together with the cameraman, together with the camera. Do not make any noise, because like if you will make much noise, like walking, especially the shoes, they have like to have special shoes so that not to make noise as well. So to be silent. So some people need to be silent. That's the thing. Yeah. So and let's see. Since we were talking about this very important person from sound department at the first time, so sound mixer, and as I mentioned before, there is a special nomination for Oscar for best sound mixing. So this year, this Oscar went to our film that we've already discussed before and mentioned, 1917. And it went to Mark Taylor and Stuart Wilson. I don't remember if you watched 1917 or not, because we already mentioned 1917 for, of course, best cinematography. Okay, so Roger Deakins got for best cinematography. Then last time at the previous lesson we discussed visual effects. So this film also got the Oscar for best visual effects. And now sound mixing. Okay. Well, considering that it is like a war film, it is sort of one continuous shot which is fake, but anyway, there is this camera moving smoothly during the whole film, which is like almost 2 hours. So, and locations always change. I mean, you go somewhere inside, outside. So, war film, so it's about shooting, it's about explosions, it's about different sound techniques, how you can record this. I mean, you need to watch it because all this film, like, okay, no spoilers, 2 actors, so they all the time they walk and the camera is walking, so you can imagine that the boom operator or operators, they had also to walk. Sometimes they were driving. I mean, that was really hard, but they managed to do it. So therefore, they got Oscar for best sound mixing as well. So at this point, for like production stage and for sound department, that's all that you like really need to know. And so that to see the difference between this production sound department and sound mixer, so that to compare this department, which will become bigger during the post-production when we start talking about the post-production. So at this moment we will leave sound department and we will go to another person who is very crucial from the point of view of music. So we're going to talk about film composers. So before, well, I can imagine, probably. I mean, like, if we're talking about some kind of like war shooting, cars driving, so something that has a lot of different sound, noise, and it's coming from different places, inside, outside, and so you cannot imagine film without such a huge work sound. So I mean, of course, so at least it should be nominated. Yeah, so Dunkirk, even like with air forces, so yeah, need to check if it really won Oscar for sound mixing as well. Okay, so if speaking about film composers, so do you have any names connecting with film composers? Probably you know the names, but maybe you don't really remember which soundtracks or like original scores they wrote and for which movies, but probably you heard some names. Morricone is the first one to arrive. Yeah, unfortunately we lost him recently. Yeah, maybe you know which films he worked for. Of course, he's a legend and he wrote like many great soundtracks. And there is a German composer. Yeah. Yeah, mostly. Yeah, usually that's, well, at least I'm getting the most popular names. Morricone is the German composer. That's good. That's a good start. Okay, so before we move into the contemporary time and film composers, so we need to get like a few flashbacks into the film history, and I will remind you that so at first films didn't have sound, so it was only about image. Until some year, so maybe you will help me. So when was the first music film produced? When we we finally heard actors talking, and we heard music from the film. Since before all of this time, yeah, 1927. So before it, films, yeah, jazz singer, great, bingo. So before it, films also had music, but this music was not really coming from the film. The music was coming from outside, from the orchestra, which played some music pieces during this film showing. That's how it happened, and it was happening almost for 30 years. So if we imagine like the birth of cinema from 1895 until 1927, so almost 30 years, there was no combination of image and sound together on film. So you can imagine that during this time, usually they used some famous music pieces, music compositions, usually classical ones, but the profession of film composer was not really developed. So, and when it's finally started with the sound in film, so that's when film industry started to think that there has to be somebody writing like special music for film. And so that's how the professional film composer sort of immigrated from ordinary composers, so they could start working from film industry as well. And when we think mostly about film composers, so it can be, it's not just, for example, one music piece. It's different music pieces, because I don't know if you ever paid attention, like how much do you actually hear music like in the background during the film. For example, if the film is like 1 hour and 30 minutes, so how much time do you actually hear this music? It cannot be like all the time loud, but it can be sort of in the background. You can hear, for example, like the most intensive or dramatic moments, and you think, oh, okay, maybe it's like just 2-3 minutes. But in fact, and maybe you will be surprised, that if, for example, no, I mean, if you calculate all this music, I mean, we cannot really, when we talk about music, we consider even like slightest melodies that were implemented. It could reach, so, okay, so if we have a film which runs for 90 minutes, then at least half of it will be with music. So at least 45 minutes. Or it can be longer. But it doesn't mean that you're just watching the concert. No, it's always in the background. It's just this little melodies, like little tones or little yeah, okay, so for now it's like little tones, little melodies that you can hear. You cannot, maybe you don't really even notice them, but it's just the subtext. It's just to give the atmosphere. Yeah, so, and you can imagine that film composer has to produce this music. For now we call it just music piece that will run for at least 45 minutes. So it's like an album. So you need to write an album for the whole film. Have you ever downloaded or maybe scanned some soundtracks, like album soundtracks for films? They called OST, and then the film, for example, OST Godfather, or like OST it's called original soundtrack. Okay, so how long is the album? So at least it's like 45 minutes long. Yeah, okay, can you hear me now? Is it okay? Yeah, okay. So remember, it's like an album. And if you want to know like how much music was composed during the time for the whole film, so you just can Google this original soundtrack for film, and you will see this whole work that film composer did for the film. So it is music, and we need to separate it from the sound. So sound that was recorded with the help of sound mixer, boom operator, and like the second assistant sound, it's another thing. It's just the real sound. And music is a different thing. Okay, so if we talk how and when this film composer appears during the film production cycle, it's always different because it really depends mostly on the film director, because sometimes film directors prefer to start even working with specific film composers. It's always different during the development stage, because some film directors prefer to have some music support already from a film composer, so that to feel the atmosphere and probably to hear the future film or to hear the future soundtrack. So in this case, some soundtrack references can be used, or already film composer can start drafting the music. So it really depends. It's like a relationship between film composer and film director. But of course, you need to pay for such work, and such a privilege to start working with a film composer starting from the development stage, pre-production stage, some... yeah, that's Hans Zimmer. Of course, we will talk about him later. And sometimes if already film composer is starting to produce something that film director really likes and goes for it, so film director can even start playing these music pieces composed during the rehearsals with actors, or during some scenes, or even during like reading the script, because it helps to create the mood already. It helps film director especially to be already in the world that he or she is creating. But it will cost more money. Usually, of course, film composer starts working during the post-production time. So when the whole film is shot and the process of editing started, and so film composer at least starts to understand which scenes will need music support for sure. So which scenes will really require some music pieces. But again, film composer will start working closely with film director and sound editor as well. Sometimes with to make final decisions about music soundtrack with film producer, because it's marketing as well. If oh, and great. So because music is also a great marketing tool. For example, some film soundtracks become so famous that they start to sell it like an album, like a single, for example. Therefore, some money investment should be done, and then it will be really a great investment. So, if you want to know where it's better to connect with film composer during the development, pre-production stage, or post-production, it's different. But usually, of course, if we're talking about some standards, it's post-production. If it's some kind of like friends collaboration, or it's a special requirement from a film director who cannot really start working on a film without like film composer supporting him or her. That's another story. So, yeah. Okay. And temporary score. Yeah, so that's all that you need to know. Before we start talking about the types of different film music pieces that film composer usually composes, I will show you the trailer for the documentary film that I would really like you to watch. It's about the collaboration between film composer and film director and how they work. So let's just watch this trailer first, because you will see some familiar faces probably, or recognize something new, and you will hear some famous music pieces.
I like that. It seems like a very natural transition.
Yeah. Let's see if we can do it.
Music is the one thing that we all understand that we don't understand.
Music has tremendous driving power within the narrative of any film.
Bond. James Bond.
The visual is one thing. When you add music, it becomes something else.
It's a whole different experience.
The score is the heartbeat of the film.
So much of it is felt. It's all about intuition.
You realize this power we wield.
You can make you feel anything we want you to feel. John Williams made me realize film music can be as great as the classical composers.
Thomas Newman, his music is just so eloquent.
Hans Zimmer revolutionized what we do.
We have to go shake it up. We have to go and reinvent.
For months and months, it really feels like you're going to fail.
Proving yourself is a great force.
There is a chemical high.
Pirates. It's like Led Zeppelin played by an orchestra.
What can the audience really feel?
It doesn't matter how you get there. It's whether it's got substance.
Standing on the podium and hearing it for the first time. I guess it's like seeing your child for the first time, being born.
Film music is the symphonic music of today.
How do you make the audience feel like they're coming home?
Your mind is connecting those dots.
Film music has changed fairly radically.
There's sort of a new renaissance going on.
It's so visceral.
It's incredibly powerful.
You can't say enough about how exciting that is.
So that was a trailer to the documentary. I hope that you will be able to watch it, since it's really exciting and you can see all these famous names of great film composers and their understanding of how to work on this film score and how to collaborate with the film director. So maybe you spotted at the very beginning the work. So when the film composer was trying to play something on the piano, it's already how it starts. So you just start talking with the film director, words become melodies. So you just try to find this something that will connect to your film, connect to your idea, because you can have like an imagination as a film director, what's inside of your head, but you see the image. If, for example, you don't have any musical background or education, so you start to work with references, but still you're looking for something original. So have you heard or have you seen some other names or some other interesting films that now you recognize soundtracks from? Because at the very beginning you told me that it's kind of difficult to refresh something. Okay. Yes, and it's really interesting that sometimes you can first. Okay, so sometimes you can hear the music, and you know that this is the soundtrack, and you start seeing the image like in your imagination. So you first hear the soundtrack, and then you recognize the film. So this is how it works. Or sometimes, for example, you can see the image, you can see some scene from the film, and then you say, oh, but they have this beautiful music, or they have this beautiful original song from this film. So that's how sound and image are connected together. So they help each other, so that to sort of build some harmony and build the whole film. Of course, not all of the films can make this nice collaboration when the image is perfect, the music is perfect, and everything is perfect. Sometimes film can not really have this great, remarkable music pieces. Just maybe some nice background music, but still it's working. But I guess like the biggest jackpot is when you have this great image and great music combined, and music leaves and image leaves after a long time. So, and we have, of course, some great examples. So, coming to the elements of film score, or which types of this film score we can experience during watching the film, so that you know how to spot this, all the different music in the film, so that to combine it together and to see that it really can run for at least 45 or even more minutes. So first is so-called temporary tracks. It's the thing that when sometimes film composers have been asked by the film director to imitate a specific composer, and on other occasions directors can become so attached to some original music pieces that they want to use for real. So they need to buy the rights of this, for example, to use this original score, for example. And so they don't want, they can collaborate and they can mix up with some music specially written for the film. And one of the greatest example is the Space Odyssey by Stanley Kubrick, where he used the recordings of classical works, like lots of them. But he also used the pieces composed by Ligeti, the composer that he worked with. It was a nice combination, so you can always, you have to be like a conductor. So usually film director is compared with a music conductor, so you need to orchestrate, since the film director is the last person to make the decision, so which music pieces to use, and then the film producer. But still, film director chooses what to use and what not to use. So if film director feels that some music can be borrowed, it's okay. So if it can be worked out, that's fine, and combine it together with some original score written. So this is the first case, and I'm going to show you how it worked for Space Odyssey. And in this video, there will be a timeline how different music scores were combined and in which scenes. So I'm not going to show you the whole video since it's a little bit long. I'll show you just the beginning so that you will see how it's usually visualized. So it's like already a little bit sound editing, but I guess you will still have a preview how it works.
Before we see a single image in Stanley Kubrick's 2001: A Space Odyssey, before we know anything about the world the film is going to inhabit, we hear this. A chromatic, impenetrable cluster spanning 5 octaves, played by strings and woodwind. A swirl of dense, amorphous sound, like pure energy, completely devoid of form. This is György Ligety's atmosphere for large orchestra. The undifferentiated nature of the sound representing possibly the undifferentiated nature of the cosmos at the point of its conception, the Big Bang. But like the images in the film, it's difficult to conclusively say what this is telling us. But what we certainly can say is that Ligety's music represents the unknown and the unknowable, the alien species that seems to not only be controlling the narrative of the film, but also the progression and evolution of humans. From ape to star child. But it would be a little too easy to say that Ligety's pieces are just used to represent the supernatural elements of 2001. Music plays one of the most significant roles in the film, and every appearance and reappearance of a piece seems to have been designed to reinforce.
So you start seeing the timeline together with the scenes, and you can see what pieces of music Stanley Kubrick used during the timeline of Space Odyssey. So just pay attention.
To reinforce the metaphorical role that that particular piece is playing. Even the diegetic music that appears in 3 instances on the Discovery 1 has been chosen very carefully to place it in the context of all other music in the film. So each piece by Ligety, Atmosphere, the Kyrie from his Requiem, Lux Eterna, and Aventure, takes on its own unique role within the narrative, giving us progressively more information about the nature of the alien species. The introduction of the second piece by Ligety, the Kyrie, slightly sharpens the image of the world that we're seeing. The piece is used 3 times in the film, always to accompany the instances when the monolith appears. This is the rectangular object created by the species that seems to be controlling human evolution. The Kyrie is clearly related to Atmosphere. Both pieces use a technique devised by Ligety known as micro-polyphony. Polyphony is where 2 or more musical lines are sung or played simultaneously, creating harmony through their overlap. Micropolyphony is where multiple melodic lines played in independent tempi and meters overlap to create a dense network of interlocking strands that when combined create a shifting, writhing texture. Harmonically, this also creates cluster chords, but cluster chords that are alive. Unlike normal polyphony, you can't hear the individual lines, but the result is something that has an internal energy that keeps the music moving. But the main distinction between Atmosphere and the Kyrie is the instrumentation. We now hear voices. The monolith always appears in the film at a point of transition, when human evolution progresses through development of technology. And the first advancement in technology is the hominid's use of tools. So it seems appropriate that as information is imparted, the score adopts a new language, one that involves words, voices, and vocalization. But this is accompanied still by dense micropolyphony in the instrumental and vocal writing. This is the undeniable mystery of the object and the cosmos. The next time we hear Ligety's music is when Floyd is travelling to observe the second monolith, which...
So it's quite a great analysis of how the music is used in Space Odyssey. It's of course legendary film and from many aspects, but don't forget about the music. And there is music is not something irrelevant, and Stanley Kubrick spent a lot of time so that to make it like a symphony, and it's a great work. And if you didn't pay attention to music before, so start paying attention it from now. Especially if it's a great or at least good film. So nothing is irrelevant. And so if answering your question, Marat, if a film director has a great knowledge of music in general, so then he or she will navigate himself or herself quite freely or what is already has to be done about music composition in the film, because I don't know, it's individual and it's different with like every film director and creator. So what comes first, image or sound, or it's better to have like combination of image and sound coming together to the creator. But eventually, so sound should come, and you need at least, of course, if you cannot really hear like the original score, then they will travel to your film composer and he or she will compose it. But at least you're starting to hear the references. So if it's something sad or something happy, at least in this direction, and you start having this playlist, for example, for the whole film or for some separate scenes. So film director does this work as well. And if you come already prepared to your film composer, so that at least to give something, because your collaboration with a film composer starts with a talk. When film composer asks you like in which direction we are moving. But of course, if a film composer can suggest some ideas, and it's always great when you work with creative people, when they throw in some ideas, it's the best experience that can happen, because film director cannot generate the only one the ideas. No, but still music is something that is very important, and film director should know the way through it and to be able not only to see the film but to hear the film as well. Yeah, so I guess that will be my answer. So have you seen Space Odyssey? Have you paid attention to the music there? Since it's enormous work done for this film from the point of view of music selection. So you're not Stanley Kubrick fan? Okay, let's move to the next one. Maybe the next one will be more interesting. The next type of music, of film score, it's called structure. So what it means? It means that every music piece is composed according to some scenes, or usually for characters. I don't know if you have paid attention before or not, but during the film, each character, and especially the main character or main characters, they have their own music themes. And when you start seeing this or that main character in the scene, this music theme starts to play. Maybe not so loud, maybe in some different deviations or changes. For example, if our main character feels much happier, so then this music piece, his or her theme, becomes brighter. So if he or she feels a little bit sadder, then the music starts to be sad as well, so his or her own theme. But every character has his or her own theme in film. Moreover, some turning events, they also have their own themes, and so on and so forth. So it depends on the film, but usually characters and some dramatic turning points in story, so they have their own themes. For example, we can take one of the greatest film composers, John Williams. So he wrote the score for Star Wars saga, and there every character, so it can be Darth Vader or Luke Skywalker or Princess Leia, in addition to some turning points in the story, they all have their own themes. And if you take some other long-running stories like Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter or even Pirates of the Caribbean, which we've already seen and heard, so there is this main theme, which is called soundtrack, and then there are other themes. And if you go and Google some original soundtrack albums, then in titles of different music pieces you will see theme of this character or theme of this scene. So it's all about these film score structure elements. So let's listen to Star Wars themes. So I guess you understand what I mean by different themes. Of course, you can have main theme, but all the other themes, so they need to be in harmony with the main theme, but they need to have their own shadows so that to portray the characters. And I guess you can sort of observe the difference that if it's like Luke's theme in this one, so it's more, in a way, maybe male music. So if we see Princess Leia, so it's more tender music. So it's all about the music and how to use it so that to describe the character and to describe the mood of the character in this or that particular scene. Yeah, so that's about structure, element of music score. And one more type of film score, it can be source music. So source music or source cue comes from the elements that are mentioned in the script. And for example, so if it's like music coming from radio or TV or something, or some, for example, music band is really playing some music piece in the film, so it's called the source music because it's not something that our characters cannot hear. It is something that our characters can really hear in the scene, so where they are located. As an example, I'll show you this source music video from the film The Deer Hunter. I don't know if you watched this film or not, but probably you heard this famous song, Can't Take My Eyes Off You. And so you will see how this song was implemented in the scene.
You're just too good to be true. Can't take my eyes off you. You'd be like heaven to touch. I wanna hold you so much. I don't know why could see the truth. Can't take my eyes off you. On the way that I see. There's nothing else to wear.
Here I go.
So what do you think? What's the source of this music? Where is this music coming from? Since our characters obviously can hear. Yeah, probably. Yeah. Yeah. So, and the point of source music is that characters start to react to this music. So they start either like singing, dancing to it. So they start to collaborate with this music that they are hearing, and so it adds some kind of a mood to the scene, or it starts changing the character. So it is important for this music to start playing. So that's the idea. With the previous like temporary tracks and structure music, it's background. Characters cannot hear this music. That's we can hear them, but they cannot. So that's the main difference. So have you seen The Deer Hunter? With Robert De Niro and Meryl Streep. So this film got few Oscars, and if I'm not mistaken, Meryl Streep got her at least nomination. Okay, good, very nice. So when speaking about music for film, we need to distinguish between two categories that they nominate films in this category. So I've been talking for a long time already about music. So what do you think are these two nominations for Oscar for music? They are separate. We had before sound mixer, but it's about sound. But if speaking about music, no. Best no, best sound, no. It cannot be. It's sound, it's about sound. It's either best sound mixing or best sound editing. So forget about sound, just music. So which types of music we can hear in the film. So best original soundtrack. Okay, so, and best theme song. Cannot really be theme song. Okay, so official names. Oscar for Best Original Score, or it is original soundtrack, but anyway. This year, this Oscar went to film Joker, and this Icelandic music composer with an unpronounced name, but she is very good. So she is a very talented woman, and she is the 9th woman nominated in the music scoring categories. So women are moving to the Oscars in this direction. Yeah, best song. Have you watched Joker? Have you paid attention to the original score? Do you remember it? Okay, great. Very nice. Because when I was watching Joker, so I really paid attention to original score and I really liked it. And then I was really happy that... Okay, if you don't remember, just a short preview. I was really happy when she got Oscar for it because this original score is really nice. I mean, it's very atmospheric. know it, you recognize it. Yeah, so that's the main theme, and in a way it's the theme of Joker. So yeah, and it got Oscar for Best Original Soundtrack. And the second Oscar for music in film goes to Best Original Song used in the film. And so it should be actually like officially written for the film. Sometimes it can be, of course, borrowed from famous musicians. Like this year, Oscar went to Elton John for his film Rocket Man, and it's biopic, and of course, so the original song should be performed by Elton John. Have you seen Rocket Man? Well, I guess you know Elton John, but well, catch up. It's I mean, from even point of view of like biopic and sort of it's not music, but it's music film. Just be sure to watch the full version, not the cut version. Okay. Well, anyway, I'll just show you. And one more thing is that during the Oscar ceremony, they usually perform Best Original Songs, and they don't usually perform Best Original Music Scores nominees. Because, I mean, for song it's more entertainment, and so here is Elton John and his entertainment. And so on and so forth. So that to make Oscar a more entertainment ceremony, which runs about 4 hours. So sometimes they use this songs performers so that to make it brighter. Well, Whiplash, yeah. Okay. So on the one hand, you have sound department during the production stage. That's where we stop today with sound department, and we will continue with this department during the post-production stage. And music. So it's a different area, but still there has to be collaboration with sound department, but during post-production. But you need to remember that the main person responsible for music, which is film composer, usually works tightly with film director. So it's a different area of collaboration besides other departments and everything like that. So film director and film composer, they collaborate on a different level, but still it's a part of this huge film production cycle. And let's have a look at these great film composers of all times. There are a lot of them, and some of the names we've already mentioned today. So I'll just give you some of them so that you connect more and maybe pay attention more when you see the films and go through the final credits and pay attention to names and songs and original scores and so on. So let's see who are these people according to some polls and some statistics. So there is such a film composer which is like really famous, Bernard Herrmann. He wrote music scores for Citizen Kane, this famous soundtrack for Psycho by Alfred Hitchcock, and he also wrote this famous music theme for Taxi Driver. He really liked to collaborate with Alfred Hitchcock as well, because like almost in all of his films, but I guess Psycho is the most famous film among them. So Bernard Herrmann is one of the greatest film composers from 20th century, and though he managed to collaborate with Martin Scorsese on Taxi Driver as well, but so pay attention, or at least remember that this legendary horror soundtrack for Psycho was written by Bernard Herrmann. One more film composer, John Williams. I've already mentioned him in Star Wars when we talked about different themes that were written for this film. So, of course, he is the main film composer for Star Wars and for George Lucas to work with. And he probably he is mostly known for his work on Star Wars, but well, Star Wars is a great saga, and for every film, John Williams wrote different music pieces and different like deviations and changes of this famous theme. Yeah, that's because Psycho has anniversary, and they decided to show this film again. So yeah, I guess that you're missing. Well, if there is one more showing, so you should really watch it. Yeah, okay. One more famous film composer mentioned already, Ennio Morricone. So that's the legend. And he worked closely with film director Sergio Leone, as well known for different partnerships as well. And he wrote the famous soundtrack for this Western with Clint Eastwood, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. But we know the greatest soundtracks from The Godfather, Once Upon a Time in America, Cinema Paradiso, and so on and so forth. So some Italian, in a way, Italian music always sounds, so therefore he, I guess, had a little bit more connection with some Italian film directors, like Italian-American film directors. Coming to this German film composer, Hans Zimmer. He is German-born, but he is mostly like American one. So Hans Zimmer is probably the most productive film composer because he works with different types of film directors and in different genres. He can also work for animation films as well, and he has a very nice collaboration with Christopher Nolan for almost all of his films, and it's been quite a great collaboration. So Hans Zimmer. Another one is Alan Silvestri. I've mentioned this film composer when we were talking about, I guess we talked about some casting when we spotted Alan Silvestri in opening credits to Back to the Future. And of course he's famous for his work in Forrest Gump, but I mean, he has more than 100 credits So he's quite productive film composer as well. Another one is Howard Shore. He's a Canadian composer. He is probably mostly famous for his music pieces for The Lord of the Rings. But anyway, so he is productive film composer as well. Of course, there are some other names that are not mentioned here, but at least, so if you focus on this few, it will give you already some knowledge of what to expect and so what these names are and so on and so forth. I will also show you some video with just the beginning of some great soundtracks, and maybe after it you can come up with your favorite film soundtrack, since soundtracks are something to be remembered. So just a few of them.
All my friends are heathens, take it slow. Wait for them to ask you who you know. About family when family's all that we got. Everything I went through, you were standing there by my side, and now you gon' be with me for the last ride. It's been a long You know it's true. Everything I do, I do it for you. Pump it louder, pump it louder.
So going up for top 10. Okay, let's find top 10. So let me see. Oh, that's 7.
That the spades are the swords of a soldier. I know that the clubs are weapons of war. Wherever you are, I believe. My love, my something strange in your neighborhood.
Well, I think that Indiana Jones was somewhere between 45 and 10. Just well, I guess it's some kind of amateurs top 50 movie soundtracks, because I guess you cannot really decide which movie soundtrack is the best, because it's like you cannot really decide which movie is the best, and sometimes probably maybe movie soundtrack is better than the movie itself, or vice versa. So, and it really depends. Well, tastes differ, but well, that's how it works. So, do you have any favorite soundtracks of yours? I guess Anton likes Indiana Jones. Yeah. Okay, so still Professional by Morricone. Good. So I'll play you my favorite soundtrack, and probably from one of my. It's not film, but it's TV show. But still, I like it. And so on. So this one is by Angelo Badalamenti, who's again Italian. So Ennio Morricone. So we have connection to these Italian film composers. Well, Santa Barbara. That's the soundtracks from a TV series, but I guess so. Yeah, we can count this too. So now you have more information, more understanding of how important music score or original song is. So it can live forever, and it can, of course, connect you and be marketing. Well, anything. Yeah. Okay. So just think more about music and film. Try to pay attention. Try to distinguish between just sound at this stage and music, separated for original score and original song. And so try to be well, you can now start analyzing and different score elements as well, so that to help you to understand it more, I'm still recommending you to watch this documentary film, which is called Score. And so you will get more information, you will see more names, and you will see more interesting professional words and terminology, but you will already feel much better. It's Kraus, no, I haven't seen it. Okay, but I'll pay attention to. Okay, so our lesson is finished, and it's number 9 already. So if you have questions, more so you can write me. And our next lesson will be about principal photography, which is about production stage. We will talk about typical shooting day, papers and instruments on the set, film crew involved on the set, and some interesting essential on-site vocabulary. So next lesson will be about real production, and I think it will be also interesting as well. Okay, clinic. Yeah, I think it's translated like clinica. Okay, so do you have any questions about sound and music? Any comments as well? Just so that to, I guess, to navigate yourself more. So when next time you watch a film, just if it's some famous film, for example. Of course, we're looking forward to Tenet by Christopher Nolan. Hopefully it will be open at the beginning of September. So, of course, there will be some great music involved, but I'm not really sure that Hans Zimmer worked on this one. I think they didn't work on this film together with Christopher Nolan. There is another film composer, but so I guess we will pay attention to the music used in this film, and when the original soundtrack will be available to listen to or to download. So pay attention to the running time of the album and the titles of these music pieces, because they will give you information about the structure, like the main themes of the characters or some scenes and so on and so forth. So this is how you will navigate yourself through the film as well. Oh, okay. Well, hopefully. Yeah, that's another one. Unfortunately, it's not Hans Zimmer, but I don't know why they didn't work on this film. So probably something happened. Yeah, but Ludwig Göransson, I think he is also an interesting one. Yeah. So something coming from Star Wars. Yeah. Okay. So I guess I will see you next time, next week. And we are about to finish our course, so get ready. The next and the last 3 lessons will be really intensive and interesting, and so get ready to listen to some interesting information. Yeah, final quarter, and prepare some interesting questions as well. And try to watch some homework too. Yeah. Okay, I'll see you next time. So enjoy your weekend.